What? Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker is once again directed by J.J. Abrams and stars Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, and Carrie Fisher. This time around, the Resistance is gearing up to take on a new threat while also facing an old enemy. This is a spoiler-free review. I'm going to give my super vague thoughts on this movie without getting too much into specifics. If you want a spoiler review, let me know down in the comments, but I don't even know if I really want to do one. But let's get into it. So, Star Wars is always a divisive franchise, especially the newer movies. There's always people very split on what they think about it. Force Awakens, people thought it was too much like A New Hope. Last Jedi was too different. And now there's this one. And I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt. I went in with as much of an open mind as I could. There was the Rotten Tomatoes score that came out just before I went to see the movie, which is like 57%. I didn't want that to cloud my judgment. I was still going into this with an open mind. I honestly didn't know what to expect with this movie, and I was still disappointed. I don't think this is like the worst Star Wars movie ever, but it was just really weird, and there were a lot of weird directions for characters, weird scenes, things they added into this movie that maybe weren't addressed or should have been addressed in previous movies. There was just a lot of things going on here. Now, again, it's not all terrible. There's some good things here, but I was overall, I would say, disappointed. So let's start with what worked. Let's talk about what positive things came out of this movie. I think Oscar Isaac as Poe Dameron was great. I think his character had probably the best arc of the movie and the trilogy. I think you really see where he started and where he is now, and it's logical where he ends up. I think the action, there is some great action scenes here. Now, they're not all great, and they don't all make sense, but there were some cool things here and there. I think C-3PO was great as a comedic device. I thought he was really funny, and that's about it. Oh wait. And also Lando Calrissian being back, that was cool. I thought he was Lando Calrissian. You know, again, sometimes older actors coming back to play previous roles to kind of phone it in, but no, I think he was definitely Lando in this movie. But let's get into what didn't work, because I have more to say about that. So at first I was very conflicted about certain things, and the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, you know what? This doesn't make sense. So let's get into that. First thing, I think there are certain characters that weren't done justice in this movie. Some of their arcs didn't make sense, where they started or where they were left off in Last Jedi to where they are now. The progression didn't totally make sense. Some characters were given new pieces to their story that didn't necessarily fit what we were told earlier. You could see in this movie that J.J. Abrams was trying to course correct a little bit from what Rian Johnson did, because if we go back, Force Awakens, J.J. Abrams had one thing he wanted to accomplish. He seemed to have his own plan for this trilogy, and fans took it as him repeating A New Hope. So then here's Rian Johnson coming along with The Last Jedi, and he takes a lot of the things that were hinted at in Force Awakens and throws them out the window and does his own thing. So now J.J. Abrams is back, and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to run with what you did. I'm going to try and course correct and fix it and make it back into what I wanted to do from the beginning, and that really shows in this movie. You really see that the messages, the styles that they were going for just didn't mix, and so this trilogy, I think, just feels very disjointed. Like, I can't see myself going back to watch these 3 movies in a row and seeing a clear story, seeing a clear narrative. There are some elements that do have that and some elements that do connect between movies that make sense, and some characters that you do see grow from what's happened and the development is there, but this movie specifically, I feel like, was just nothing. It just felt like too many different things happening at once. Some things didn't make sense. Some characters' directions didn't make sense. So I felt kind of blah about it. Like, usually in a Star Wars movie, you feel really like excited and you're like really hyped about what's happening, and there's some points like that in this movie, but a lot of it I was just kind of sitting there and like, okay. There's a lot, especially in the first half, there's stuff I feel like could have been cut down on, some things that could have been explained more. And there's a really, I think the first act of the movie, the intro of this movie, if you're not locked in, if you're not invested from the first scene, then you're probably not going to like the rest of the movie, because that's what I think really messed it up for me. I was like, why are they doing this? Why is it going in this direction? So from there, if that's not your thing, if you're not really feeling it, then you're probably not going to like this movie. Now, again, I don't want it to seem like I'm dogpiling on it like the rest of the critics, because, again, I really tried to enjoy this movie. I really tried to give it the benefit of the doubt, but there was just too much that didn't make sense to me. And so I'm not really feeling it. And there's certain things, especially towards the end, that I was really confused about, that I was either cringing at or raising my eyebrow because I just didn't see how it made sense. And so it just, again, didn't really feel connected. It didn't feel like there was a clear direction from start to finish of from Force Awakens to now. And so I was really disappointed with this one. Now, what I've seen online is there actually are a lot of people that love this movie, and I'm not gonna knock you for loving it. Of course, there are things to love in this movie, I'm sure, but I just didn't see them as much as other people. So if you are a diehard Star Wars fan and you will go see anything they do, then go check it out, go see for yourself, formulate your own opinion, which you really should do with all movies, is see it for yourself, make your own opinion. Now, I think in general, the direction that Star Wars needs to go is more solo projects, more things like The Mandalorian, which is a great show. If you haven't watched it, check it out on Disney Plus. I think that's the direction we need to go now, is not as many big trilogy movies, just more solo movies like Rogue One, The Mandalorian, projects where you're focusing on smaller aspects of the Star Wars universe, because there's so much going on in this universe. It's huge. So many different planets, different races of aliens, different cultures, different stories, things that we may not have seen in between the movies we already know. So I really feel like there's a lot of stuff to play around with, and I think that's just where they need to go, where I think they'll get the most interesting stories, the most different stories without messing with what's already been done, you know what I mean? I think that's the sweet spot here. The verdict. I think Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker is... Again, it's not the worst Star Wars movie. It's not the best by far. For me, it was just because I didn't feel much coming out of it. I was disappointed. I was confused. Some things should have been explained in previous movies. Some things should have been kept from previous movies. They shouldn't have tried to change so much in this one movie, because then it just made it more disjointed and more... it made it less focused, actually. It made it more disjointed and less focused. So I would say, again, if you're a hardcore Star Wars fan and you don't care what critics say, go see it. But if you were already kind of on the fence about it, if you weren't a huge fan of The Last Jedi, then you probably won't want to check this one out in theaters. So that's it. Have you seen Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker? What did you think? Let me know down in the comments. Also, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Happy holidays. I will see you in the next one.